I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of people don't think about is like you need to be able to do the grunt work and then everything all the way up to the flashy stuff.
I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now show. You know that thing you've been thinking about doing? Yeah, that one. Why not now? Have you ever actually taken the time to ask yourself, what's stopping me? Let's talk it through. This is your chance to give that idea the attention it deserves and take action. Each episode, I have a chat with a fascinating person, from entrepreneurs to athletes, celebrities, my parents, rocket scientists, and all walks of life. We talk through a critical time when they've asked themselves, why not now? We dissect that day or even that moment, step by step.
Just let go.
Hello, everyone. Wow, how quickly things can change. Here we are, a week or two into, for a lot of people, quarantine, self-distancing, and we are globally dealing with the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic. It's amazing to just even say those words out loud. I have a lot of things I'd love to share with you about just tips and things that I've learned when it comes to dealing with adversity and navigating adversity. I will do that in a separate episode. The episode we have for you today is actually highly relevant as well. And so know that this was pre-recorded. This was recorded before we were in the middle of this pandemic. And however, it does lend some valuable insight on things that could possibly be helping you right now. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and wherever you find yourself listening to this, I hope you are staying as safe and healthy as possible, staying home. Literally right now, staying home is saving lives. And just doing what you can virtually to stay connected, to stay in sync with community as best as you can. One of the things that's beautiful about our technology infrastructure in 2020 is that we do have the ability to stay connected. And it's so important right now for our mental health and just in general to kind of navigate this season together. I have quite a few things in the works in order to provide some free content. We've got some programming coming up that I will share with you as soon as it's ready to go. So please follow along if you're interested in using this time to learn, to try and do what you can to grow professionally and personally, and maybe have a bit of a healthy distraction. So much of the game is mindset, and we'll definitely be touching on that too. So you can either sign up to receive email notifications if you want to join in on some of this programming, or follow me on social. You can sign up at amyjomartin.com, the homepage there, and just following along on social, you'll definitely be in the loop. Before I introduce this week's guest, I did want to also just give you a couple of other references that might be helpful right now. We are approaching 200 episodes on this podcast, and we've had some of the most innovative leaders and minds, resilient individuals. So we have a library here of people to learn from and to help guide as you are going through what you're going through. There's an episode for almost anything and everything. So a couple that came to mind that I wanted to call out to you that may be of help. Why Not Now, episode 164 is called Pausing in the Chaos. And this is with my friend Stephanie, who has been in some extremely intense situations. I was alongside her with my own son in the NICU, and she talks through some of the things that got her through, the tools, the things that she did when she would be receiving this kind of life and death news from doctors and going through a time of complete unknown. So I encourage you to check that out. It's episode 164, Pausing in the Chaos. She has a tool and a tactic called Tell Me What's Good, and I get goosebumps even thinking about it. So check that out if you're interested. Also, episode 162 is How to Pivot. So this is a live conversation. I'm on a panel with a few other individuals, and we're talking about pivoting. Right now is such an opportunity to look at things differently for your business, for yourself, and make adjustments and experiment, try something different given the new circumstances. So get that renegade kind of hat on, and you can listen to that if that's of interest. And then episode 171 is John Maxwell talking about leadership. And these are tactical, tangible things you can be doing right now for yourself, to lead yourself, as well as your family, as well as your team. Many of you are working remotely and virtually right now. So leadership is so critical right now, not just for work, but for your family, for your team. So hopefully those are helpful. I think it probably goes without saying that we can get easily fatigued by watching the news right now, yet it's important to be informed. So definitely take note of where you're getting your information, the sources, how it makes you feel in terms of the narrative, and consider possibly just going to the source too. Johns Hopkins has a great email newsletter. I also enjoy subscribing to the New York Times, which is free for any coronavirus information right now. And a couple of things that I've been doing just to try and have some healthy distractions here and there, one of which is all the late night shows are pretty much recording and broadcasting from their homes. So we've got Stephen Colbert, we've got Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, and it's pretty funny. So they're doing their best to lift us up. Also, just looking for the good, right? Just there's some amazing positive things that are happening among the heroes and real leaders out there, healthcare providers, and focusing on that is pretty helpful. It has been, at least for me. And last but not least, before we introduce this week's guest, I want to read you this quote from Mr. Rogers. And you may have heard it before, but it's so good, I wanted to surface it again. And he has said, quote, "When I was a boy and I would see scary things on the news, my mother would say, 'Look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping.'" And that's Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers. So I encourage you to look for the helpers and do the best you can to help. One of the things I've been trying to do is just see how I can help using social media. So if you're on Twitter, I'm over there asking how I can help. And I encourage you to try and do the same, even if it's virtually, using your expertise, your swim lane to lend a hand to someone else. It's amazing what happens when we start to do that. Plus, it will make you feel good. So it's the most selfish thing you can do right now. All right, so let's get into this week's guest. My friend Erin Bailey is on the show today, and it's tough to even start sharing her titles and things because that's great and all, but she's just a really, really good human. I'm extremely inspired by her. She has been the director of community and fitness programming at A6 Digital. She's currently the director of community at Beam, which is a startup. She's had her own business before. She's worked in the fitness and health area for a long time, and she's also I guess you'd call her a health influencer. I don't know if she would love that term, but she definitely is because she influences not only on social, but in the world. And Erin has also been through the Renegade Brand Bootcamp, by the way. So she's a graduate of the program. We connected several years ago, and I consider her a good friend. So Erin and I talk through her path through her career and how many pivots she's had, how many changes and reimagining scenarios she's been through, some of which she chose and some of which she didn't, but it ended up to be a good thing. A lot of the conversation rolls up into her understanding and feeling the confidence to take bigger risks, to realize that she is going to be okay. One of the things I heard a while back, but we mentioned this on this episode, is that when one door closes, another one opens, and oftentimes there's hell in the hallway. So, we've talked about the messy middle on this show before. I know many of you are going through some of the messy middle right now, especially given the current situation. So this is an episode for you to listen to. Erin talks about a time when she was completely blindsided and shocked to be let go of, to be laid off at a company that she was working for, and how that really was the catalyst for this new way of thinking and a completely different way she lives her life now. And ego is a theme in this conversation as well. If anything, one of the things that I take away from Erin and her path, she's extremely humble and willing to share her way of navigating a pretty windy path that's also been up and to the right, and how it's not linear, definitely. However, it's these curves and these twists and turns that have given her the confidence to really do what she wants to do and to pursue that. So she's really grateful for that adversity along the way, because it's become an asset. And I know you hear me talk about that a lot, but when we can leverage adversity, we can use it as a springboard. This isn't just about making lemonade out of lemons and having a positive attitude. It's really leveraging this time and these times of adversity and using them as a slingshot forward. I'll leave it at that. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Erin. If you have thoughts, questions, ideas of what you would like for me to cover in the coming weeks, given the current situation that we're all in, please reach out to me. I would love to tackle whatever you want to hear about. All right, everyone, I've got an announcement. As of today, we are officially enrolling for the 2021 Renegade Accelerator Program, formerly called the Renegade Brand Bootcamp. Okay, so who is this program for? What is it? The Renegade Accelerator is for driven female leaders, executives, and entrepreneurs ready to massively increase their impact and income. The program is for like-minded, like-hearted women all over the globe. The experience is intimate, live, real-time, virtual, and it's led by me. Our curriculum is equal parts education, practical education, collaboration, and accountability. In the accelerator, you'll learn directly from me, and I share everything I've learned over the past 20 years in business. We meet in real time to learn, discuss, and grow together. This is high touch. I'll teach you a variety of things, from personal branding to the business side of public speaking, podcasting, publishing, marketing partnerships, how to productize your intellectual property, and we even talk about investing. I teach you all about the different types of investing in order to build your personal wealth. You will also learn the renegade mentality, which is a key ingredient in your success to generate real results. This program is the career love of my life because I get to curate a mosaic of driven, like-minded, like-hearted women who come together to lift each other and themselves up to the next level. After the Renegade Accelerator, you become a member of my top-level alumni community. This group of unmatched women who are making a positive impact is personally curated by me. The relationship building and networking opportunities are endless, and this collective of real, valuable connections will be something that you have forever. If you're at the point where you are ready to take action and accelerate, head to renegadeaccelerator.com. You can sign up for more information where I will guide you in determining if the program and the timing is right for you. If not you, then who? And if not now, then when? Why not now? Head to renegadeaccelerator.com. Erin Bailey, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you on, and let's get started. Hop in right where we usually do. In the spirit of why not now, can you tell me about a time when you had a big decision to make and you had to ask yourself, why not now?
Oh, how many times do I ask myself that question? Such a joy to be here. So, always great to connect with you, Ajo. I think the biggest kind of, reflecting for this, the biggest aha moment, why not now moment I had was about 4 years ago. I was working for a company called Withings, which was actually the position I was in when you and I first connected.
Yes.
Yeah, holds near and dear to my heart for many, many reasons. And so for me, with this company, it was the first time I was working in the health and wellness industry, and really was loving being surrounded by those like-minded individuals and getting to make that type of impact in the community. And I had this rock star job. I was their global social media manager, and at the same time was just starting to kind of build my own fitness wellness brand while being there, and they were amplifying me. So much of who I was really tied into this company and this job, and I loved it. I just loved it. In that same vein, I was starting to kind of explore what it meant for me to be in the fitness industry and how I could potentially kind of dabble in that side hustle and maybe pull in some more of those different types of ideas into the workplace. So I decided I was going to build out this whole corporate wellness structure and start to implement that inside Withings, and had worked for months to build out this corporate wellness plan. And I was coming up on my year-end review, and I had this whole presentation. I was so excited. And so I walk into this meeting with my CMO, and I jump right in, and I'm like, okay, so these are all the things I've done. These are all of the things I now want to do. And this is why it's going to be great. And literally 30 seconds into the meeting, he stops me in his thick French accent and is like, Erin, I'm sorry, we're eliminating your position. And I was like so caught off guard. I was unbelievably caught off guard. And it just wasn't ready for it. And it just didn't even think like, one, that could happen to somebody like me who had added so much value to this company and, had all this, external success. And two, like, I felt like I was just in this like intimate relationship with my job in this company. And so they obviously valued me as much as I kind of valued them. So they handled it in a gracious way, and I could kind of control the story, the message, whatever. But I was ashamed, and I was so burned, and I had literally like been dumped. And in that moment, after I had gotten rid of all the anger and hatred and shame I was kind of going through, I was starting to look at other opportunities and, what do I do next? And I had already planned out the next 3 to 5 years of my life with this company, whatever. And just realized that in that same kind of metaphor of being in a relationship with this company, like I wasn't ready to pour that energy into a new company. I wasn't ready to pour that same energy into a new job. And so I had this moment where I was like, I'm kind of testing what it means to build out a side hustle. What does it mean to be in the fitness world? Like, is that something I should now pursue? But ultimately, like, I wanted to do this thing for a company. Like, what if I did that thing for myself? And what if I tested what it meant to kind of stand on my own 2 feet? And so I made the decision kind of by default that I was going to work for myself, and was really practical in having kind of 4 different areas I was exploring, and that meant, 4 different incomes. But the biggest learning and that takeaway for me was, one, like, I was in a plan B and plan C. And I feel really grateful that, elements of me working for myself really worked out, because it allowed me to then feel the confidence to take bigger risks in my career moving forward. And I'm lucky that happened pretty early in my career for me, because I learned so many lessons about how I want to invest and manage energy and time and love in a brand, but also that ultimately, like, I'm going to be okay, and I can take risks, and I can fall back on my own 2 feet. And that was, one of those beautiful lessons that really catapulted a lot of the other career decisions I've been able to make since then.
That's such a good why not now. Oh, there's so many things and areas I would love to explore with you. So thank you for sharing. And I think what you said too about, having achieved so many external success kind of markers, and then this happening to you, and how could it happen to someone like you, as you said? As you then navigated into your own path of entrepreneurship, and even before you got there, what was the transition part? Because we kind of skipped over that pain and the anger, that time period and season of what the heck just happened. How did you get through? Because you did. And not only did you get through, it was a huge gift, because I can't wait to get to the next side of it. What did that day look like? What did the hour look like? I mean, what shock. You literally were kind of flipped upside down. Because and by the way, Withings was one of our first marketing partners on this podcast, thanks to you, right? I just thank goodness for the way that the universe brings us together, and look at what we've done together since. But you never know why someone's in your path. But so yeah, what did that look like? We're eliminating your position. What happens that next hour?
I mean, I literally can like see the room I was sitting in so vividly, right? And so I was like sitting at this, it literally was like, had walked in, was sitting at this like one of our tiny little conference rooms, and 2 seconds before the meeting started, our HR person walked in. And it's never a good sign when the HR person joins you for really probably any meeting. And she was such a love, and someone I really, enjoyed being around. And so in my mind, I was like, oh my gosh, I've already put some feelers out that I now want to do this other thing, this corporate wellness thing. Maybe she's here because she has to be a part of the discussion if my role moves, right? That was where my head was. And then so for our CMO at the time to literally, I was 30 seconds into my very excited pitch, that my position, it was like, like my face turned bright red, and I just felt this like sunken feeling. And it was very much this like, these things don't happen to me. And in my mind too, it wasn't that so the company had been acquired by Nokia about, I think probably 6 months before. So there was a lot of change that had been happening. But what was happening also too, this might be too much detail, but a lot of what was happening is Withings was kind of a large startup, and Nokia came in as this like large umbrella company. So they were bringing in a lot of senior leadership, and they were getting rid of a lot of the like worker bees. And so what happened is I was like, my job is safe because I'm the one who's creating the strategy, implementing the strategy, like I'm good. So I just didn't even expect that to happen. So he, when delivering this news was, wonderful and empathetic. But in my mind, I was like, I just got fired. And I know fired and, laid off are very different situations, but that's what it felt like, because it's that same rejection. And he, I got a small severance, and he, said, take a few days, like, let us know how you want to move forward with this. And I literally, the call was over. It was like 60 seconds long. And then of course HR jumps in and is like, here's paperwork, and these are your termination papers. It's all just so much and so terrible. And I remember literally taking this like packet full of papers, walking to my desk, grabbing my bag and walking out the door. And our office is 30 people, and we're all very social, and everyone's like, what just happened to Erin? And then it's like buzz. And then that's that same idea. Like, it's that shame of what are people saying about me? How do they actually view me? Like, what do I do next? And I think that day I got ice cream on the way home, which is my solution in good and bad. And right. And I just didn't even, it took me a few days to really like comprehend what had happened. And then it was like, okay, we're in problem solving mode. And that's just how I, jumped through. I think it honestly probably took months later for me to come back and realize like there was still so much of that like shame and disappointment in the situation, and so much bitterness towards the company that I had to kind of work through. But again, like, it taught me a huge lesson of like that sometimes just like that's a piece of business, and as valuable as you are, they are taking care of their business first, and people, as terrible as it sounds, like are ultimately, replaceable.
I'm so glad that you've shared this story, because it's so easy for us from the outside looking in to not either maybe not know these stories and understand, like, if we were to look and capture your life through the lens of your online presence or just someone watching in from the outside, you would never know this, right? And so I guess what's so beautiful about this is it opened so many doors for you. And it's not just a cliche type of thing. It literally, like you said, it showed you that you are going to be okay, and it gave you the confidence to take bigger risks. So this is so common too, that I hear and speak with people who have either been laid off, maybe fired, something's happened in a kind of shock in their career and their job, and it becomes the best thing that's ever happened to them. It's so common, but at the time it's tragic, right? So let's talk through where this took you, because I've heard the saying, when one door closes, one door opens, but there's hell in the hallway. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but the hell in the hallway it can be a lot, but it sounds like you had, just like anything, it's not linear. You process this when you were ready, right? So it wasn't like, okay, first let me process this fully. Then I'm going to problem solve. Then I'm going to, in sequential, like chronological sequence. No, you went into problem solving. That's very much what I would do too. And then you'll process when you can and need to along the way. Because this, all of a sudden, your personal brand, let's call it that for the sake of people understanding and description, it took off. This was starting to happen already, right? Because of just the nature of your world and fitness. But was this a part of the catalyst, would you say? Because I know there was a piece of viral content as well in here, and I'm trying to remember when it happened. But can you talk a little bit about that energy and momentum of how it may or may not have played into this?
100%. Yeah. So I got laid off. It was the end of January. So the previous August, so 4 or 5 months before that, was when I had the blog article go viral. So the blog article, this is again at a time I had zero following at the time, zero blog presence, but I was fired up about this situation, and I wrote this article that was essentially kind of the Me Too movement in the fitness industry, of sharing stories that had happened to me specifically, and it really took off because every person I've ever met has had a situation where they've dealt with street harassment. I mean, men and female. And street harassment is the non-physical kind. And also because it was in a movement situation where, I was trying to better myself, it just kind of had a little bit more fuel to the fire. So it took off in this capacity, which opened up a lot of doors for me. And I think that's a piece of it, is because it started to open up doors for me. I started to see the momentum I was building kind of outside of the day-to-day job. And that's when I started to think, I was teaching fitness classes outside of that, and I was starting to think, like, if I ever wanted to do this full-time fitness thing, and again, I live in Boston, it's a ripe fitness community, but it's not in New York or LA. There's not a lot of people that do full-time fitness. Like, how can I financially make that work? Because it's also a very expensive city to live in. And so that's when I was starting to dabble, if that was ever even going to be a possibility for me. And in my mind, I just have never, I never felt like I had an entrepreneur bone in my body. Like, I never wanted to work for myself. I never wanted to build my own company or build my own even brand per se. And so that just wasn't even where my head was at. And I think because of that, like, I was holding myself back to a point. And so this layoff was kind of the kick in the pants I needed to go and try something I would have never done otherwise. I would have never quit something to go pursue this opportunity when it's exactly, obviously, clearly kind of exactly what I needed to do. So that was kind of the block piece, was the momentum to go into it. And so the momentum I was building, and I got really practical, which I think is also something that I find a lot in my community of people asking me questions, is like, I have this side hustle. When do I make it my main hustle? And I was so practical, where I was like, I literally need X amount of money to pay my rent. I need X amount of money to live. I have this much savings. Like, what do I need to do to make that all work? And so I was like, all right, I can teach enough classes to pay my rent. And then I want to test what fitness modeling might look like for me, because you have no idea when you'll get booked or when you won't. I want to see if I want to build out this consulting side. And that was continuing to use kind of that other piece of my brain and what I was doing with things. And so that was social media consulting. I was starting to build influencer marketing programs for companies. And that was kind of a start of when the influencer marketing place starting to boom a little bit. And then, what did I say? I was consulting. So I was consulting for the gym I was looking for. I was testing online training programs. And so trying to think of the scalability of everything I was doing, right? I'm only so many hours in the day. If I build an online training program and test it enough, it can be something that can make money without me paying attention to. So I literally had 4 sources of income, and was like, okay, what happens if X goes away or Y goes away? And I had to just be really practical in that moment. And biggest thing I always tell people, and the biggest, I think, like, confidence thing for me was like, you have to be an entrepreneur, and I think to go out on your own, like, you have to be able to swallow that pride pill, is kind of what I say. And so I had to say, like, what other skills do I have if this totally blows up in my face, right? And maybe I can't find another job immediately, and everything totally breaks. Like, I know how to make coffee, and I know how to work an espresso machine, and I know my local Starbucks and my local coffee shop I've been going to for 3 years, will hire me. Like, I literally had to think that technically. Otherwise, like, I would have never gone out on it, because normally your plan A is never how you succeed to begin with. And so I think that's a biggest thing that a lot of people don't think about, is like, you need to be able to do the grunt work and then everything all the way up to the flashy stuff.
Yes. So this goes back to, you knew you were going to be okay. So like building this foundation that you will always have with you for the rest of your life, that has greatly impacted your approach to risk. You have this thing that, this knowing that this opportunity of being laid off opened up for you to realize and test yourself of, what can I do? Can I do something on my own? Can I, and if it doesn't work out, what do I do then? What do I do then? And you've been through the worst case scenario. And so what's amazing is that's such an asset, because now where you've taken that knowing into all different types of places and spaces that you probably couldn't have even predicted, has allowed you to grow. And as I'm listening to you, what I realize is so often, we talk about these side hustles and this parallel where you've got your 9 to 5 and then you've got your XYZ side hustle, which used to be called a hobby. Now we get paid for it. What's really happening is you're building confidence with that side hustle. And I look back when I did it too in 2008, 2009. It's not so much the act of whatever the side hustle is, it's the act of building enough confidence. So if people are listening right now who are in that spot, maybe don't put so much pressure on the results you're generating with the side hustle. Focus more on the confidence you're building, because in the end, that's what you need to take you over to the full time and to that true transition. It's more of a function of building that confidence. Okay, so you calculated the worst case scenario. You're leveraging adversity. These are like 2 of the renegade rules that you're just doing because you're a pure renegade. And then a couple more things happen. I mean, you've had a few other shifts in your career, and you've been open about discussing these and sharing them. You've had quite a few changes. Can you talk a little bit about those and how you view that at this stage in your career, and just how you've discussed it before?
So I guess to kind of build on some of these side hustles I was kind of working on. One of the pieces I was doing, one of the 4, right, was this consulting practice. And that was kind of ended up becoming the core business. And in that, I had one client was my Everybody Fights gym. And then my second client ended up turning into my next job. So my second client ended up being A6. And this was kind of the next big pivot for me. And what had happened was the CMO of A6 Digital came and took one of my classes. And really enjoyed one of my classes, ends up sending me this cold email and is like, we have so many things, our worlds are colliding in different ways. I just took your class. We have this thing going on. I want your opinion. Can we just grab coffee? We go to grab coffee. She also brings her CEO. We end up just having this open conversation of kind of where the online training world is going. And at that point, I had done one of my online training, one of the 12-week online training programs I had built. And plus, I'd just been training so many people in person. So I was just kind of just giving advice on what they were asking about the industry in general. And at the end of it, they end up kind of offering me my next consulting position, which was they wanted to build a fitness training app. So A6 had purchased Runkeeper, so they had Runkeeper as their core running app, and they wanted to build a cross-training app to go with that, and they wanted me to come in and build the app. So in that same vein, I was like, I don't know if I'm even going to like this role, and it's so fitness, and I don't know if I want to be so fitness and be the trainer, and I hadn't been a trainer that long. I was doubting if I had enough knowledge and confidence to be the head trainer and then manage all the trainers and build all the content, right? And so I went as a consultant for them, and they were very open to that, which was also great, and they very much supported me pursuing his other things. And about a month in, the CEO came and sat down, and they were like, we want you to come in full time. And whenever you're ready for that, whatever that looks like for you, like, we want to start having those conversations. And so I think the other beautiful thing is the consulting side gave me an opportunity to be really choosy and understand that, like, I'm now kind of in the power seat, and I can kind of decide where I want to invest my time, and again, build kind of that healthy relationship with a company, because so much nowadays our identities are built into what we do all day, into our careers. And so the second beautiful piece of that, which was the confidence building, is not only could I go out and start my own consulting, whatever consulting meant for me at the time, but then I consulted for a company and they wanted to bring me in-house, right? So that was kind of the second piece that was validating for me, where I was like, not only do they want to hold me on for a 3-month project, now they want to also pay my health insurance, which was huge. But that was kind of that big transition moment. And that also gave me the opportunity to go full-time fitness, not just from a teaching component, but also from the business component and team building and community side. And I did that for a few years and loved it. And the second kind of pivot, in terms of the career pivots at least, is I had gotten to a point where I was working in corporate. A6 is a big corporation, and I had felt so removed from the people I was wanting to help, and I was ready to get back into the grassroots of things and get back into the business. And I ended up leaving and joining my now job, which is a startup. There are 6 of us. I was employee number 2 outside of the co-founders, and it's a CBD startup. So it's an industry that's entirely unregulated. It's literally the wild, wild west, and it's a company that's so small. So it's not only just these hurdles of a normal startup at that size, but also just in an industry that people don't understand, people are so curious about, people are wanting to get involved in, and there's so many barriers to entry and so many hurdles to acquire customers and legality. Like, there's just so, it's like a startup adventure on steroids, which has been a whole other type of journey and learning component, and a whole other type of confidence I needed to be able to jump in and be like, the FDA could come out and say CBD is not healthy and illegal tomorrow, and the business could go under. And I took a huge pay cut and took a huge risk to do this, and now I'm out of a job, right? And that's just going back to that same idea, is like, I know I'm going to be okay. If that happens, like, that doesn't scare me anymore. It scares me now not going for those big, exciting growth opportunity moments.
Oh, I just got chills. I just got total chills because you would have never taken this leap if you didn't know, if you hadn't exercised that trust in yourself first. It's just so exciting. Okay, what you just described sounds like a amusement park ride. So exciting and adventurous, full of opportunity, full of challenge, full of, scary moments, but exhilarating. And I'm not surprised, because it might be a little part of your personality, that excitement and the unknown. I mean, pretty much everything you've done in all of these different positions is navigate into the unknown. That's innovation. And you keep plopping yourself right in these intersections of innovation, which is really, really cool. Going back to, you're going to be okay. If that's one of the takeaways from this episode, that's an amazing one. So let's talk a little bit about, your head of community, your employee number 2. For anyone who hasn't been a part of a startup before, it's equal parts just so fast paced, and you better be flexible, right? Because things are going to change 10 times before noon. But also rewarding, because you get to see the results pretty quickly, and what works, what doesn't work, and you're on that front row here. So you're ahead of community for something that is still a big question mark. And how do you approach that? I mean, building a community around something that still needs so much education and awareness. Are you making it up as you go?
Oh, always. That's usually, fake it till you make it is how we're living our lives these days.
Fake it till you become it, maybe.
Fake it, exactly. Fake it till everyone else just comes around and agrees with you. It's so interesting. We've had a lot of kind of these company meetings now that we're a little over a year in business. It's like, okay, we've proven the concept that we're going to be in business, and we've done a round of funding and we make X money. It's like, now what is this company, and what is this company culture, and what do we want to do in the world, and what do we want to become? And it's cool because those are the conversations we're having as a company. And it's not in every other world I've been in. It's right? It trickles down. The CEO and the C-suite and whoever tells you who we are, and you fulfill it within your own, areas. And this is a conversation where they're coming and saying, our two co-founders, Matt and Kevin, are saying, this is what we think we are. Let's all have a discussion and let's co-create this together in what we're building. And so I think it takes strong leadership to be able to buy in. I mean, the only reason I joined the company is because I trusted them, and there was no other way you could join a startup like this. I just trusted them so much and trusted decisions they had made up until that point. And then you trust they'll, take your voice of confidence with it too. So on the community side, it's been interesting because, what we've learned a lot about CBD is it's plant-based medicine. That's all it is. And so the cool thing is we have some incredible stories about how people are, getting off of hard pharmaceutical drugs and using this as a natural remedy. And that's really what it is. And so that's the education piece we're having. And my job is so much about just being with the people because, from what we've learned from everything, from all the influencer marketing that we do and I've done in my life and podcasts and things like this, is people trust people. And so, they want to hear about what this is from someone that they trust and admire and is a real human and isn't a pothead and isn't, all of these traditional stereotypes that come with cannabis. And we're trying to create the anti-cannabis CBD company, right? It's a supplement company. So in terms of the community building, it's so much about just being there and being in it and uniting people kind of around that same mission and educating our influencers and our people to feel confident sharing that. But I think the other piece that's been interesting and kind of a personal transformation that I've brought into this is so much of my, to also add this, so much of the reason I've been able to make so many of these brave decisions, because I have such a close community and such a support system in my family and my mentors. And my sister, side note, she's a graphic designer and she did all the design for my website and my online training program. I had no money to pay her. And she did it because she believed in me so much. And she said, I just want 10% of your company. So nothing happened of Bailey Fitness. However, to this day, she still owns 10% of whatever that ends up being one day. So that's just a testament. I've just had so many people that have been able to back me behind it. With that, a lot of my community has been in, my mom's a public school teacher. My dad's been in nonprofit my whole life. So I've always had a little bit of this push and pull of like, how are we also serving others and using that as what community means too. Community isn't just like, how can we get a group of people together to sell this product, right? It's how are we actually like showing up for each other, elevating each other, and giving back and kind of elevating the whole system. So the cool part in this job that I've been able to kind of finagle is how are we, not only pulling people together, but how are we also educating them on other things that the community might need? So for an example, one of the things we like to do is we have about 35 people in Boston specifically. That's our quote unquote community. That's a more structured part of the community we work with. And we do one internal event and one external event. So the internal event's usually a movement of some sort. So still very much using kind of the core of who I am around movement, even if I'm not teaching as much now, to bring people together. And it's people that are, they're entrepreneurs, they're working for their brands, they're fitness instructors, they're bloggers, whatever. They're in all different industries. We come together. Hopefully someone's, meeting a new friend. And we get to support kind of our local studios. A lot of them are women owned. A lot of them are the first kind of business they have. But then every other month, we pull in a nonprofit partner. So either we go to a gym that's a nonprofit gym. We have a couple options like that in Boston. And a piece of that is just also like exposing the community that we're building here to other ways that they can get involved. So it's not just about them showing up for that 1 hour, but if we keep exposing them to also other services and partners and things that they can give back, maybe one of them, they connect with one of the partners on one of the nonprofits and they then feel called to get more involved on their own. So I'm learning that the community can mean so many different things, and I can really kind of amplify my position here for it not to be about building people together to sell a thing. It's actually like we want to impact these people's lives in lots of different ways, and there's so many fun, creative ways we can be able to do that.
Very, very interesting. And before we shift into a different discussion around community, I just have to add as a just innocent endorsement. So Beam is the name of the company, the startup that you're a part of, and you were so gracious to send me some. And I have really found it helpful, extremely helpful, with sleeping. I have this thing where when I wake up in the middle of the night, sometimes it's pretty tricky to get myself back to sleep, which is so frustrating. And this is the first time I've ever tried CBD. And as far as I can tell, it's it works. Here I am just,
Yeah.
the only thing I know is not using it. And I've never really used any sleep aids before. And so I just, as someone who is very green to this entire world, I'm grateful. And so I just had to kind of plug that there because it works. It truly does. So thank you for sending that my way.
I mean, there's nothing worse than a bad night of sleep too. So,
Uh,
so glad that, I'm so glad it's Beam that's working for you, but it's just so glad something's helping you get through the night.
Yes. And I have to share this real quick too. So I was watching one of Oprah's tours. You know how she's been doing these Weight Watcher tours.
Yeah.
I think WW, not Weight Watchers anymore. Anyway, I think she was talking to Amy Schumer, and they were joking about how one of their goals in life is to get Gayle King high and have her smoke marijuana. And they were just laughing because evidently Gayle is a very straight arrow, and she will never, ever do that. And so they were just joking, and I think Oprah said something like, I've even tried to get her to use CBD oil because she, something's hurting or whatever. Yeah. And she has such a misunderstanding of what it is that she thought then she would smell like weed if she used this oil, and that it would have an impact on her like marijuana would. And it's not the case, but it was just so funny because they were laughing at, it's a lot of people don't really understand or know. And that's okay. That's normal. How would you until you become a little bit more exposed to what it really is? So,
okay, we need to get you some Beam.
I know, right? We need to start a campaign. It just it was cracking me up the way they were speaking about her. And if you're listening and you don't know who Gayle King is, it's Oprah's best friend of like 30, 40 years or something. So, and she's just never even tried a drop of alcohol in her life or anything. And we know Oprah loves her margaritas. So those two together crack me up. Okay, so and just if someone were to ask you, okay, explain to me in a sentence or two CBD, what is it?
CBD is an oil extracted from the hemp plant. Our CBD has no THC in it, so none of that psychoactive chemical at all, and it basically helps your body come back to its homeostasis. So that could be fighting inflammation, fighting anxiety, fighting stress throughout your body, and there's many different ways to take it. It's all natural. You can't overdose. There's nothing but positive benefits for it. So a lot of it too is just find a high quality company, a high quality supplement, a high quality oil that you like. Go for that. Don't buy any of the $9.99 things on Amazon. They won't work for you, I promise. And just try it and see what works for you. And if that's Beam, awesome. If it's somebody else, that's great too.
Yeah. First try Beam. I'm just asking first try Beam. Okay. So let's switch to a community. Let's talk a little bit about social media, which is a subject we love to hate sometimes. I do. I give it so much credit for changing my life, and I wouldn't be here talking to you without it. And sometimes, it's all about how we humans use it. So you have shifted your approach to social recently, and as an outsider, we can actually feel this and see it, observe it. Can you talk a little bit about your own social community and what shifts you've been making? Because it's been fascinating, and I'd love to hear you talk about it.
So I built my Instagram profile. My community there was originally Bailey Fitness, and I started the account actually probably 5 years ago when the Tone It Up, which is its own large fitness community, they were encouraging people to use Instagram as an accountability platform. So it would be like Erin Bailey, TIU, right? Like everyone had these Tone It Up accounts. So that's where I started it. And at the same time was dabbling, starting to get my personal training certification, all those things. So that was the origin. And as I went along and became a trainer and had these professions in it, it was a fitness account. And I was very much sharing, workouts and events and all those types of things. And as I was starting to kind of evolve out of that kind of linear mentality around fitness, I felt like I wasn't being able to share. I felt like I had more to offer than workouts. And I would talk about things other than workouts, but I felt a little bit constrained by having Bailey Fitness be my account handle. And I had spent such a long time building up this community to talk about workouts and talk about fitness and give advice in that vein that I wanted to shift entirely and be able to talk about lots of things and talk about social issues and talk about politics and talk about emotions and talk about growth and career. And I didn't know if I knew how to do that within Bailey Fitness. And I was honestly, when I joined Beam, and I'd taken a couple sabbaticals before, I mostly quit teaching. A lot of that was travel. A lot of that was just I had lost kind of a love for it. And so I've since come back to teaching in a different way. But so I was kind of going through this life moment and decided to kind of replicate that and reflect that in my social. So I took and actually the catalyst really happened. I took an Instagram hiatus, which I had never done since I had downloaded Instagram, 5 or 6 years ago, right around Christmas, I guess. It was in December, and I was off for a week, and I've never done that before. And one of the reasons real reason I did it was because I went through your Renegade Brand Boot Camp a year ago now, and one of the reasons I joined was because I wanted to pursue writing in a more serious way and wanted to write this book and had this idea for a book and had been working on it, not as diligently as I should have been. And I had a publisher reach out to me on Instagram and say, I have a new book coming out. I think you'd love it. Can I send you a copy? I was like, great. I get the copy in the mail, and it's called The Joy of Movement, which was like literally what I was doing and talking about it was my mantra and it was my hashtag, like all these things. And I was like, oh my God, this woman just wrote my book. And I was like, I gotta go. Like, I gotta regroup. I gotta figure this out. I gotta go. So all this kind of happened at the same time. Turns out, caveat, the book is 100% not the same book I would have written, but that title just was the explosion in my head that it was.
Explosion in my head. Such a good, okay. We're going to circle back to that, but keep going.
I love that. So when I came back to Instagram, I was like, I don't want to come back as Bailey Fitness. That doesn't feel like me anymore. And so everyone's Instagram handles are taken. So I came back as Erin.k.bailey. And with that, wanted to redefine what kind of impact I wanted to make. And I had been, micro influencer, but been an influencer for a few years. And I was like, what am I really doing to influence this community? And what type of influence do I really want to have on this world? And I realized there was just other conversations I wanted to be having. And I didn't care as much about the 45 minutes in the gym anymore. I wanted to talk about the other 23 hours in a day and what were you doing for those? So it's taken a little bit of testing and a lot of courage to come out and share different things. And a lot of it's been vulnerability that I'm also sharing that I'm learning in this process and that this is a process for me. But, I'm talking about some of these harder growth moments I'm having. I'm talking about some of the shame I'm feeling about not maybe living up to my potential in all aspects of my life. I'm talking about some of these what we've been talking about, these positive career moments and how I've gotten there and commenting on some of these like social issues. And it's been interesting because a lot of what I had to do to begin with was say, like, what I'm going to talk about is different. The value I'm going to prove writing is different. And if you're not here for that, like, that's okay. Like, I want to give you permission, not that you need permission, I want to give you permission to go find somebody else because I'm not going to give you running workouts every day anymore. I'm still going to talk about that some because it's still a piece of who I am and what I do and what I love. But that's not all of it. And so the cool thing was I've had I definitely had a lot of people leave. But I had a lot of new people come. And that's kind of the beautiful thing is I've never been afraid of whatever that number meant. It was always like, what kind of conversations can we have here and what type of value can I add? And there were so many people that reached out and they were like, we're here for it. Like, we love it. Let's go for it. And so I also just feel like my community and the world and a lot of society is like ripe for it, right? Like, we're more than just these one faceted humans. Like, let's talk about the 360 versions and let's get vulnerable with it. And there's so much more authenticity, I feel like, in social media. And so I'm experiencing that shift in a really positive way, which also feels really nice.
It sounds like it's really supporting your growth and there's equal value exchange again versus the giving and the pushing of content per se and the workouts, but the full picture. I'm so glad that the rest of the world gets to see all sides of Erin Bailey because there's a lot of value that you have to offer. I love what you said about redefining the impact you wanted to make. There's such intention with how you have set out to do this versus rebranding, which sometimes can just feel like you're putting a new facade on the outside, a rebrand. You're redefining the impact you want to make. That's genuine, and you can't fake that. So I'm glad that you've decided to take this different approach, and thank goodness for the explosion. Thank goodness for the joy of movement. I can only imagine when you saw that book title and you're like, what? This was what I was doing now. What went through your head? Just tell us the exact words that you were saying to yourself.
Honestly, I immediately was like, again, I'm coming back to this word shame a lot today. I didn't give the idea the life it needed. And I very much believe in this idea, Elizabeth Gilbert's idea of big magic in that book. And it's like, all these ideas and stories have their own soul, and often they come and find somebody, and it's your job and it's your purpose to give that story and that idea a life, and that could be through writing or whatever. And I literally, that was the first thing I thought of, which is honestly probably a really nice practical way to think about it. But I was like, I didn't do it justice. Like I didn't give that story life. That story found somebody else. I didn't pursue that idea and that dream relentlessly enough, and this woman did. And again, that was like, I really did kind of have like a oh shit moment. And I was like kind of pissed off because I was like a year of all in my brain power. But it also gave me once I got into the book a little bit, this woman is a PhD, also comes from a very scientific brain, psychological perspective, which was not the angle I was coming at this book from at all. But the cool part is, again, not to make everything this like silver lining, because there definitely was this moment where I was angry. But it reframed the way I started looking at my ideas and what I was writing about, and also opened me up to be like, maybe you don't need to write a book now, but maybe you need to keep writing, and you need to practice that discipline of writing, because when the idea does come to you, you need to be ready for it. And I just wasn't ready for it yet.
It sounds like you went from a place pretty quickly of that scarcity, seeing, oh, that was my idea, oh my gosh, it's gone, it's not with me anymore, to allowing it to be a gift of space. Like, okay, now this is over there. Now I actually have more room. It's fascinating to see how, once again, you've flipped that adversity into an asset. And I'm going to guess that at some point in your mind, even if it wasn't even self-talk, it was at a subconscious level, you knew you were going to be okay, because you had practiced this experience before where you've tested and you've built the confidence to know it's always going to be okay. And what a gift. So just to kind of and touch on the boot camp, which I know you mentioned briefly earlier, how would you describe the Renegade Brand Boot Camp? I'm always interested because I think it's most powerful coming from women who have been through the program.
Wow, I thought of a lot of questions you might ask about this. This is probably the most basic one and not one I actually thought through. So it's like a 12-week female empowerment brand deep dive course. I call it a mastermind more than a boot camp, because that feels more expansive to me than what it was. But I think that's what it was, because there's so much. It's interesting because I think I didn't entirely know what I signed up for, to be totally honest. And I think probably a lot of us did that too, a little bit of a leap of faith. And I think I walked in being like, I want to learn how to write a book. And that was very much like, this is what I think I'm going to get out of this 12 weeks. And yes, I learned a lot about that process and the writing process and the publishing process, and walked out with a lot of knowledge there. But I walked out with so many buckets of wisdom, and bigger than that, like this insane, empowering community of women that just, we learned so much from you, and we also we championed each other, and we learned so much from each other. So that was not a short answer, but it's a really hard thing, I feel like, to sum up, because it's been 13 months since we started the boot camp, and I'm still coming back to the lessons we've learned. I'm still coming back to my notes. I literally still have the huge sheets of paper we did from our the initial kickoff. Like, it's all still, it's still happening, it was 12 weeks, but it didn't, there's no end.
Very interesting. Thank you for sharing. It's the reason I asked the question is, here we are, we're going into our fourth class. This is year 3. 2.5, 3. And it can be tricky to describe what it is, because it isn't just one thing. And so I appreciate you sharing. As the marketer in me sometimes wants it to just be so tight and crystal clear. And I think that could be limiting if we tried to, box it up too tight, because a lot of it has to do with human, personal, and professional development and growth, which is really difficult to peg sometimes, along with the tactical elements, like you said. Yes, you get that for sure. And there's a much bigger layer that can be difficult to describe at some point. So I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing. It's been such an honor to follow your journey and see where you take your life and your path. and how you flex that brave muscle all the time. I know that sometimes you refer to flexing the ask muscle, which I love that. But you have a level of bravery mixed with humility that seems like it's a pretty great combo that's leading you into amazing directions. So, Erin, I'm grateful for you and grateful for our friendship and our ability to collaborate in so many different capacities. And thank you for sharing your wisdom today too and your time.
Oh, thank you. This was so fun. This was so fun. And thank you for everything you've taught me over the years, and grateful that it has evolved into this beautiful friendship, mentorship, and everything it will be.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the show. Hit me up on social media to let me know what you think. I'm at Amy Jo Martin on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I want to hear your Why Not Now moments so I can share them on the show. Just send me a note to whynotnow@amyjomartin.com. For show notes and other offers, you can visit amyjomartin.com/whynotnow. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my email newsletter for exclusive content and announcements. A big thanks to Rock Salt Music for all of the tunes by the talented John Coggins. And of course, a hat tip to Richard Brewer for editing and producing the show. I'll see you next time. And until then, why not now?